4. Oh, I think it's going.
All right. Hey guys.
Everyone.
We are back for our live show number 2, and tonight our guest is awesome, Josh LaJaunie. So excited to have him on the show. For the one that are new in this show, there is a chat room and you can ask questions on live. So Katie will be in the chat room.
Yep, so just get in the chat room and ask your questions for Josh, and I'm just going to be looking at the chat room and pulling the questions up and then asking Josh as we go along the show. So you guys are probably wondering who the heck is Josh. Josh is our guest tonight, and he has an amazing story, transformational story. I don't even really want to say too much more, but one of the most inspirational people we have ever listened to. So without further ado, let's welcome Josh onto the show. Hi, Josh.
All right, hey.
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we have a small ritual, and we just bring some drinks, healthy drinks. So tonight we have hibiscus tea with some kombucha. So that's what we're gonna be drinking tonight. Do you have a drink with you?
We kind of sprung that on you.
I do not. I had a big glass of water, but I drank it already.
Yeah, that sounds like us. Water is the way to go. We got inspired. I don't know if you watch Ginger Runner Live or like Sage Canada. All these other trail runners are always like drinking beer and like talking about their drinks. And we don't drink beer or alcohol, but we drink kombucha. So cool.
I drink water mostly.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. So let's start with, can you please explain us like kind of like the point in your life that was like just before you decided to change, and so we understand like where you were and why you had that need to change.
Sure, man. It was. I tell you, I get that question all the time, and it wasn't really quite as clear cut as just one single moment. It was more of like a compilation of things that ultimately, built up to a tipping point, but if I had to, narrow it down chronologically to one section in time where everything started to change, it would be early 2011. I was going back to school. I was in my senior year as a non-traditional student here at Nichols in Thibodaux. And I knew that I was going to have to stand in front of like an auditorium classroom setting and give a business presentation. And I knew that all of my public speaking classes before, I had been able to get away with like business casual, leaving my shirt untucked, no tie, that kind of a thing. But I knew in my capstone course that I was going to have to don a suit and tie and tuck in my shirt and wear a belt, and it was really sort of eating at me. And already stuck out because I was a non-traditional student, so I was like 10 years older than everybody in the class anyway. And on top of that, I was 200 pounds heavier than anybody in the class. And so I got it was something that was happening later in the year that was weighing on my mind a lot. And I was dreading it. And so a friend of mine contacted me in February 2011, and he was like, "Hey, I'm joining the gym tomorrow. I would like a workout partner. Would you come with me?" And that was it. And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I want to be your workout partner. I need to lose some weight." And so that's where it all got started. Now I've lost, I've distilled it down to that one point in time, but I've been wanting to not be fat my whole life, man. My whole life. I've lost over 80 pounds probably 3 times in my life. And so it's almost disingenuous to say that was the moment in time that I decided I wanted to lose weight, because it's not really that true. It's not really true. It's not really like, oh, you saw it, you decided to do it, and then you made it happen. The truth is I failed at doing it you know, multiple times throughout my life.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
why do you think you know, why you were failing? Like, was it because you just didn't want it bad enough, or like was it because you
No,
didn't know how to do it?
it was a couple of different reasons. I think my approach was wrong, one.
Mhm.
So I was always looking at it like I'm going to do this temporary thing to lose weight. Right? So it was always from the get-go, it's like I'm going to try this new diet and lose 100 pounds or lose 80 pounds. And so I would pick a goal weight, and then I would change my behaviors temporarily. I knew they were temporary from the get-go, right? So I would change those behaviors temporarily. The weight would get gone, and then it would be, yay, lost the weight. I can have burgers again. I can have donuts. Like it was, that was always how it was. And so, and then the reasons for losing weight were always something different. It was never really because I really wanted it. It was because I always thought that somebody else might want it. Like maybe it'd have been better for my football team, or maybe it'd have been better to help me to try to, you know, get girls, or maybe it would be, you know, better, you know, make me more popular, or like whatever the case was. It was never really something that I took on as a thing for me. It was something I felt like I should do. But it was never really something that I approached out of self-love, you know?
Yeah. And then this time was different though, because you wanted to do it for yourself. You wanted to be able to get up
Right.
in front of
I already had the girl,
good.
right? Yeah, I already had the girl. I already had, my wife had already married me, and it was like that part that was sewed up.
Mhm.
So that wasn't a thing. She had made it very clear to me that she loved me no matter what. So that was never really a thing. And and this time I wanted to do it because I just, you know, I wanted my outside to kind of match my inside, because I had gone back to school. I was in my 4th year of getting my degree. I felt pretty confident in myself. I felt proud of myself for what I had done. I really didn't think it was in the books for me to go back to school and earn a degree. I didn't think I would ever do that after I lost my football scholarship and flunked out the first time. So I really didn't think that was going to happen. And but it was happening, you know. And so I was thinking about myself in a different light than I ever had before. I was thinking about myself as someone who can get things done, someone who is pragmatic, someone who reads, someone who is a fact finder, and willing to make changes based on newfound evidence. And
Yeah, so maybe there was already some sort of like, you know, paradigm shift happening.
right, the school
works,
sort of
right?
jarred it, right, and what it did is it got me more like pragmatism oriented, right? So I became a lot more pragmatic and a lot more fact oriented as a student, learning and doing research projects and reading and those types of things. And I was really it really opened my mind a lot. And so with that new mind, I approached this weight loss in a whole different way than I ever had before in my life. First, it was for me.
Okay.
Secondly, I was approaching this thing from a basis of fact, rather than what they say you ought to do, or what they say you need this, they say you need that, and you know what the guy at the GNC counter is telling me, and you know, so it became more of like a science project, and you know, I was the experiment, and I took myself on as a case study, really.
Wow.
So right now, at that period of your life, you were over 400 pounds. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I was probably around 410 or so when I peaked out.
And so, what was your lifestyle at that time?
At that time, it was you know, fast food throughout the day, all day, every day. I drive a lot for work, and so I'm in my truck a lot, running errands. And so, you know, my daily food intake was either fast food or stop at a, you know, fried seafood restaurant, or grab grab a fried seafood like oyster po' boys or whatever. That was just the daily norm. And in between meals, it was, you know, candy bars and beef jerky and Coca-Colas and stuff like that was snacks throughout the day. And usually in the afternoon, it was, you know, beer and or whiskey every afternoon because it had been a long day and I deserve it. And then,
you know, it's not in your, like, it wasn't in your culture or your upbringing or your circle of friends to take time for you and exercise, right? That's not
right. Right. Well, taking time for me was enjoying food. That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, this is what I deserve. I deserve to have this food.
That's
right?
the culture down there.
I can have as much of it as I want because I work really hard, and you know, I can have anything that I want. I'm an adult. I'm a grown man. I can do what the hell I want. If I want to drink this whole bottle of whiskey, nobody can stop me. If I want to eat 5 burgers, nobody can stop me. It's up to me. I have the reins. It's up to me.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming at that moment, like for you, you were basically considering like treating yourself well and not intending to hurt yourself.
No, not at all. But it's a strange dichotomy because on one hand, yeah, I'm treating myself, if you want to say, with these foods and, you know, and pleasures of consumption, right? And then on the other hand, I knew what it was doing to my body. I knew what I looked like when I took a shower. I knew what it felt like to not fit in an airplane seat. You know, I knew what it was like when you would, you know, show up to the restaurant with friends and it's the first time anybody's ever been there and all they have are booths and you can't fit. I knew what those things felt like. To go to the movie theater. There was a movie theater in New Orleans where you can order food. So you sit down and it's like these big leather like recliner things, and they have servers that will come and bring you food as you sit and watch the movie. It's a neat little thing. And I was all excited, and we went there, my wife and I, for our anniversary. And I was all excited, you know, and I couldn't fit in the damn chair.
Wow.
So it was like, I had this big buildup of what it was going to be like. I can't wait. We're going to enjoy this. And the whole time I barely fit in the chair, you know?
It's so crazy to think that, you know, that is you. And, you know, we're sitting here right now looking at you right now, and you're just so healthy, right, vibrant, and happy looking. And it's so crazy that this was, you know, you're a different human being back there. And, you know, maybe for lots of the people tuning in and the people that will be watching the show, maybe we can kind of just segue quickly before we dive into like lots of questions and just what we want to know, because we're super curious. But maybe you could just tell, you know, your story from that point. You know, you weren't a runner. This was your life. You know, you were 400 plus pounds, and look at you now, and you're running marathons. So however you'd like to, without, you know, whatever.
Sure.
How did that happen? And then we'll dive into it.
Okay, yeah. So I mentioned in 2011, a friend of mine invited me to join the gym with him. And so I did that, and we got back in the gym, and you know, it didn't take much in the beginning. I just sweat a little bit and eat a few more salads, and weight was just flying off because, you know, when you weigh 400 pounds, it doesn't take a lot to start having the weight come off. The weight does not want to be there. I mean, it just wants to come off. And so in the beginning, all I was doing was my old football stuff, like go to the gym and lift really heavy weights. And that was the thing. I wanted to just be back in football shape. That was originally my goal. I wanted to get back to 290 and be in good football shape again. And so we started working out, and then so about middle of the summer, I read in a Runner's World magazine, or Men's Fitness or Men's Health, I forget exactly which publication it was, but I read an article about running being a real good fat burning exercise, and I was like, okay, I hate running though. Like I completely hate running.
Yeah, as do.
I mean, 400-pound people aren't supposed to enjoy running. It's just taxing. And so I said, okay, well, I'll start implementing this after my weight routine. And slowly but surely, that's what I did. I got on the treadmill, and then the treadmill got to where it couldn't support me going over 5 miles an hour. So, and I wanted to go I wanted to get faster. I wanted to go more. And so the treadmill, because at the time when I started running, I was still around 380 pounds. And so the treadmill would quit on me. And I was worried that I was going to hurt my knee or something on a treadmill. So that kind of like forced me outside. And,
Okay.
and then so I started going outside and then run telephone pole, walk to the telephone pole, run to the telephone pole, and I just would alternate like that. Did that for a while. And then we started going the other direction, and we went up to the high school, ran around the track and made it a full mile. Right.
So your friend was doing that in the same time with you?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. He would walk beside me as I jogged, right? That's how slow I was moving.
Yeah.
He would walk and I would just jog.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine, being that heavy, your running is
Mm-hmm.
definitely like a slow movement.
Yeah. I was just worried about just like my old football coaches used to say, get on the hop. That's all. Like, just look like you're running. Just look. You don't have to actually be moving that fast. Just look like you're running, right? And I had, I knew how to do that, and so I did that. And it, just wiggle, just keep moving. And then, around the end of the year, like so, before graduation, I'd lost around 60 pounds, 50 or 60 pounds, and that was December, right? So I was feeling really good. I felt really good for graduation, and then. Also around, my wife and I are in love with the city of New Orleans. We actually have a little apartment there. We have Saints season tickets. And so we just love the city of New Orleans. And so I would be in the city on the weekends, and I saw these billboards and stuff and these advertisements for this race called the Crescent City Classic in New Orleans. So when I was back in town, with my buddy Jeff doing our little run and workout, I said, hey, there's this race. It's a 10K. I was like, but it's, 6 miles. I don't know. And so we got to talking about it, and he's like, let's see how far we can go. If we could do 3 miles, then we could just walk the other 3. And I think we could probably get it done in an hour and a half or so. And I was like, yeah, let's think about it. So ultimately we did that. We signed up for that race, and that was the plan. Try to run half of it and then walk half of it. And that's what I did. And I wound up taking about an hour and 43 minutes to do that very first one. But after I did that first race, I was kind of wanting more, I wanted it wasn't that it felt good. It wasn't that it was really all that fun. It really sucked bad, but I had such a sense of achievement after, like, for having endured that suckiness,
So was that new compared to like the previous time when you said like you already had lost that kind of weight in the past, and so was that feeling like new?
Yes, it was very new. This was something new for me. The running thing was something new for me. And so my wife decided to come join me, and she said, hey, let's do next year in under an hour. And so we spent the whole year 2012, that whole summer, I spent running and getting even more weight off of me, trying to get to position myself so we could go and make a 1 hour effort the next year. And we did. We ran the next year in like 59 minutes and 56 seconds. It was very close, but we got in under an hour.
Wow.
And in that race, something happened about halfway through where it was like, I sort of surrendered to the run. Like, I sort of surrendered to it hurting. I had to have like this moment. Like I was trying to be in control all the time while I was running and trying to watch my pace and I was trying to like think about my pace and think about like trying to really be very calculated with my approach rather than just sort of surrendering to the fact that it's going to suck. And don't pigeonhole yourself or don't limit yourself. Just go as hard as you can go for as long as you can go and see what happens.
Yeah.
And so I did that for the second half of that race. I threw all caution to the wind and I ran, I made noise, I made ugly faces, I was moaning and, you know, it hurt really bad, but something happened. I learned something in that race. It's like, oh, I can accomplish way more than I really think I can. So stop trying to like pre-limit yourself. Just get in the fight and go as hard as you can. And so I had a big shift right there. Something happened. And after that race is when I started wanting to reach further and go to like the half marathon. I started thinking about the first half marathon, right?
So then, like, it seems like you know, from the beginning of this journey that you were explaining us, like everything like changed. Like it wasn't for the same reason. You found new reasons. You know, is that correct?
And then
Yeah,
it wasn't
absolutely.
even about the watch, the time. It was about being in it and being present in that.
Right.
race.
And what happened was, like, when running came into the picture, I started to want to become a better runner. And I forgot all about not being fat anymore. I didn't care. I wasn't worried about it. I was worried about being a better runner. And with that meant a cleaner diet, a more sleek frame, like all of these other things that meant that was going to make me a better runner would just if I wanted to be a better runner, these things would sort of have to happen in as a default anyway. So I didn't need to worry about, I need to lose X amount of pounds anymore. I completely forgot about it. Whereas even in the beginning of my running, I was kind of running away from being a fat guy. And so something happened in that second race that switched, and I stopped running from something and started running towards something.
It's like you got hooked, you know, like we all do, you know, after people have their first race or whatever it is, that love for the feeling of running.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because it seems like what happened with you was like all of these years of, or I don't know how much time passed, but it doesn't even matter, of, you know, maybe counting calories or counting and measuring, and then without the passion. And the switch seemed to have been, forget all of that. I'm going to focus on the passion and everything else is going to come.
Right. Yeah. I've started to feel like an athlete again, right? Just a little bit. And because even though I was one of the slow guys on the field, on the track, or on the race course, I was always like in the back of my mind, yeah, but I still weigh 290 pounds. A lot of these guys don't weigh 290 pounds, you know? Yeah, they're faster than me, but relatively speaking, I'm doing pretty damn good. And I was always pretty proud of that, you know? And so, yeah, it provided something that I'd never had before in any other weight loss that I had, you know, achieved. It gave me, I started to feel a new identity, and it was slowly happening. And I tell you, like, after that second race, I read Born to Run, and I read about Scott Jurek, and then I read Scott Jurek's book, right? And because up until that point, I still wasn't plant-based, right?
Yeah, actually, we just got a question in the chat room from Carrie. Did anyone inspire Josh on diet, race info, or that helped him come into the lifestyle and stay motivated? So I think you're answering that question.
So we were just kind of accidentally going there already. So I read about Scott Jurek, and then I read Scott Jurek's book.
Okay.
And then after I read Scott Jurek's book, even more intriguing than the plant-based diet was this thing, this ultra marathon thing, right? So I was kind of like, yeah, he's vegan, okay. I didn't really put a lot into that. And I started searching for other ultra marathoning books, and I put in the word ultra in my iPad in the iBooks search bar, and the book Finding Ultra popped up. And so then I read that book, and lo and behold,
like for the people that don't know, Finding Ultra from Rich Roll.
Rich Roll, right? Exactly. And I had no idea this was going to have anything to do with a plant-based diet. I had no, So I'm reading this book, and this guy's story resonates with me, because he's kind of a failed college athlete, finds himself being a, pretty serious drunk, in eating from, eating his window diet, like he calls it, anything that comes through a window. And I really identify with this guy, and he made the switch at 39 or 40 years old. And I was like, well, I'm not that old yet. And he's making this kind of switch at the time while I'm reading. I'm like, I got a lot of time to make this change. If he didn't do it until he was 40, right?
So what about, so that was your inspiration, reading the books, but what about at that time, like your environment, people around you, your friends, your family, like how was that gap between your book and your reality?
Yeah, it was tricky for a while. It was tricky. I was still holding on to the idea of, because I'm, me and my brother, we grew up barbecuing and like being the cooks of the party, so we'd always, be the guys making the jambalaya and roasting the pig and doing all of the stuff, right? That was always us. And so I was still trying to figure out how to be both of those guys. I was still wanting to be both of those guys, because I had been the big beer drinking, barbecue smoking guy my whole life. And I felt like I was going to have to felt like I was getting to like a crossroads where I was going to have to give up something that I had identified with being my whole life if I wanted to be healthy. If you want to be healthy, you can't be like you grew up. You can't be like your grandfather. You can't be like your dad. If you want to be healthy, you got to not be like any of those people you look up to. And that's a tricky thing, And so there was a lot of tugging and pulling in multiple directions there for a while, and until I was able to just sort of couch it in my mind and say, I don't have to. I'm not turning my back on anyone. They, their legacy is in my hands, right? And how I live my life is going to speak to how I was raised. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to do the exact same things that they did for them to be proud of me and for me to honor their name. And so in a lot of ways, I just wanted to, I became okay with doing it different. And for the main reason, for the health outcomes. I mean, I come from a family that's plagued with heart disease. Everybody dies of a heart attack, and so.
And there was no question about that, right? Like, it was just the way it is.
It's just the way it is. Like, it's almost a LaJaunie rite of passage to die of a heart attack, right? Wow. And so that became absurd to me. And other things in my life, other issues that made it abundantly apparent that this lifestyle that I had been taught my whole life isn't something to be coveted and worshipped and respected. The people are, not the behaviors. So let's change the behaviors to be more in line with love and respect for the actual people, right? And so that's what I did. I started changing. I started changing the way I eat, which is a big deal in South Louisiana. It's huge. And I still have friends that were very close to me then that I just don't see very much anymore. It's not like it's not like I made a conscious decision to X them out of my lives. It's just, it happens sometimes that way.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. So how, you know, from like reading the book, that kind of like gives you the principles and, you know, inspiration, but it doesn't give you like practical, you know, how to do it on an everyday basis. And so you read that book, you are inspired, but in the same time, you know, nothing around you is set up in a way that it's going to make it easy for you. So how, you know, how did you start implementing the change? Like, you know, I guess it happened like small steps at the time. And
sure. I went to one of the first steps in making it happen was I went to NOLA Veggie Fest, New Orleans Veggie Fest, and I learned about Chef AJ. And I don't know if you guys know who Chef AJ is, but she's awesome. You should check her out.
Okay.
And she wrote a book called Unprocessed, and she was speaking at the New Orleans Veggie Fest. And she did a little cooking demo, right? So I was like, wow, this is good. This is good stuff. She made a kale salad. She made a quinoa salad. I was like, yeah, okay, this is good food. And so I bought her cookbook, and then, you know, you do a couple of little recipes, and then all of the, like, once you're in the thing, you don't really need guidance much more. Like, you figure out what almond butter is, and what kale is, and what nutritional yeast is. Like, you figure out slowly but surely all the pieces of the puzzle, and then it's like an infinite way of combining them and putting them together, right? And so in the beginning, I was very reliant on Amy's Veggie Burgers and nut butter sandwiches with dates and Ezekiel bread and things that I don't eat a lot of anymore. But back then, it was just about trying to move away from meat and dairy, because that was a huge step. And so transitioning to that, and then learning from Chef AJ how to be more whole food centered, that was a whole different thing. And then around that same time, I'm also, you know, watching Forks Over Knives and reading Dr. Esselstyn and reading Whole and reading the China Study, you know. And so everything's starting to kind of like a Tetris game. Everything's kind of falling in place, and it's just kind of slowly happened. I didn't really plan it out. I just got in it and did it wrong, and, you know, figured my way through the thing. Because when I started the whole thing, I just started, oh, well, I'm going to just be vegetarian. So I was still doing, like, you know, the cheese pizzas and stuff like that in the very beginning. And until I read about, in Finding Ultra, Rich Roll talking about, you know, how he was abusing cheese pizzas. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm still doing it.
That step is so helpful, because if so many of us, you know, that change in diet from the very beginning, and I used to think people, you know, the word vegan was like, no way am I going vegan. Like, vegans are insane. And plant-based people, that's just not who I am.
Yeah.
So I think for lots of us, these steps are so important in our journey to finding what works for us.
Sure. My Bam Bam always had a saying, because he owned his own business, and he was always the boss, right? And he didn't like to see anybody just standing around. So when I was a kid and I reflected him, right? So everybody knew I was the grandson, and my grandfather would, if I would just be standing around and not doing anything, he would get me in the truck and he would tell me, he would say, look, do something. Even if it's wrong, it doesn't matter, but do something. You can't just stand around. And so that's the thing, right? People get like paralyzed by the perfect questions.
Exactly.
Instead of doing it. You think you need to eat an egg every day? Do it and see. You think you think paleo's the answer? Do it. See what you see. Be realistic about your results, you know, because I tell you, I did paleo and I lost some weight doing paleo. But at the same time, and it resonated with me, like being a raw, natural human, and you know, like a man, right? And then like I'm find myself buying Metamucil and Dulcolax at Walgreens one day, And I'm like, where the hell did Paleo Man get his, Dulcolax and Metamucil? It's like maybe he wasn't getting 90% of his calories from meat.
So, going back from, before you started that switch to a plant-based diet, like how did your weight change just with exercising and running? And did you hit a plateau?
Yeah, absolutely. When because remember, I told you guys, like, from the beginning, my goal was to get back to playing weight, which was about 290, 295. So when I got to about the 300-pound mark, I just would go up and down, up and down. And, it wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening. It wasn't going any further. I hadn't made enough. I know now I hadn't made enough change. I was still trying to keep a foot in each pool, and it wasn't. That's not going to work. That's how I'd always gone back before, and I recognized that, right?
Okay.
And so that's when I became comfortable with making some change, making some permanent change. And so it's actually my wife's idea before the 2012 race. I mean, before the 2013 race, to go to eat clean, right? Okay. That was a thing back then, right?
Yeah, still is.
And so that's what we did. We were doing, grass-fed, wild-caught, free-range, only vegetables and fruits, organic stuff.
And is it lots of like chicken over red meat? I'm not really familiar, but there is a big movement right now in eating healthy with fitness. Right. We focus on chicken.
Yeah, I think that's always the case. People seem to think that chicken is more innocuous than.
Yeah.
And that's a big error, but that's a whole nother subject. But yeah, what it was we were okay with the meat if it was free range or grass fed, organic, and it had to be all of those things for us to eat it. And
so I'm assuming that that means like no processed food, because in the processed
food, yeah.
Okay, so you probably did. Yeah, you still made improvements there, but
huge improvement. Just getting rid of the processed junk. And then because we had put so many rules around what type of meat, what happened was, so it had to be free range, organic. We couldn't just go and buy a lot of it because they just don't have that here in Thibodeau. Like you can't just go to the store and get grass-fed beef, right? And when you did, it was not a lot of it, right? And so just by accident, having those rules around what meat we ate really reduced the volume a lot. It really reduced the volume of meat we were eating. I'm seeing that now in retrospect, right? And but we felt really great. I really did. I felt really great. And it wasn't. And so around that same time, like I said, that's when I was reading Born to Run and reading about Scott Jurek, and I was like, well, yeah, he's doing that, but I'm eating clean. We're doing this thing. And it seems to be working for us and blah, blah, blah. And then you just started, because I had made that change, I was willing to make more changes. I had sort of begun the habit of making change. And if you do that, then you're open to more change and more change. And it's just it's just a cascade of change. It's not going to be linear. Okay, I'm going to do this, and then that's going to precipitate this, and then we're going to do this, and you're not going to plan it out that way. It's not how it works. You're going to get in the thing, and you're going to do some stuff, and then you're going to feel the results, and you'll do more things, and you just change and morph as you go. And if you're doing it right, we all know where you will wind up. That's a good, solid, whole food, plant-based diet for a human, And so that's all it's about, is making those pragmatic changes in food decisions and staying progress oriented. And that's all I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to grass-fed beef. I remember Dr. Greger answering a question of someone asking if the regular meat was worse, or like if the grass-fed meat was healthier, and he just responded. He said like yes, because people eat less of it. When they choose to eat only grass-fed meat, it's healthier because at the end it's more expensive. It's not as available, so they eat less, so they get healthier. But it's not the actual meat. If they would eat the same quantity, it would be as bad.
Exactly.
You know, it's kind of like gluten-free. If you're not celiac, there's controversy around this, but basically when you cut out gluten, you're cutting out so many processed foods. By default, you're going to feel so much better.
That's exactly right.
You know, I think I was going to ask you, do you think that this switch in the very beginning, when you chose to maybe really like amp up diet and go on this pursuit of change, did it have something to do with setting up an ethical or a philosophical framework? And I don't mean ethical as in like for the animals, ethical for what it means to you. And when you choose to eat clean, I'm just thinking about, you know, the person who's watching this right now who is overweight, who wants to lose weight, who wants to feel better, but everything they've done, they've failed because it's all about counting calories, it's all about inches and the scale. And I think with that in mind, what would you say about the importance of like shift in philosophy? And do you think that's what really tipped the scale for you?
Yeah. There was a point where like a light bulb went off where, you know, I lost my grandmother at 68 years old to heart disease. My dad just had a heart attack a couple of falls ago. His brother died of a heart attack. He had an older brother that had a stroke. My grandfather has heart disease and has dementia because of heart disease. Louisiana is tops in heart disease. And so it became bigger than just about losing weight and being a runner. It became like, wow, my people are sick. My people, the people that I grew up with, the people in my state, my region, my town, my family, we're all dying the same way, prematurely. And it's for the food. And so why am I making excuses for this food? Why am I figuring out how to shoehorn in an oyster po' boy into an otherwise healthy diet? Why am I trying to figure out how to make room for a cheeseburger in a diet? And so it just became bigger than it became a bigger deal than those things. It became about, for me today, still to this day, and I'm working on a project right now where we're trying to set up an organization to do interventions along the body to teach people about a healthy way to eat, right? And so that portion of why I eat the way I do and how it keeps me going has been huge. Like, so it's not just about me being me. It's not just about me keeping the weight off or about me running races and doing stuff like that. It's become more about me trying to be a mouthpiece for real, healthy change, doable change right now, today, change that can be done right now. It's so within your grasp. It's about being a mouthpiece for that change right here where I'm from, you know? And so, yeah, it's a lot bigger picture than just about the scale. And so that, in taking that tact and having that mindset really frees up the decision making. Because if that's how I'm orienting myself, then it's not a struggle for me to go to a crawfish ball and abstain. It's not a struggle for me to go to a Mardi Gras party and not partake in, you know, the king cake and all the junk that they're eating, because I've taken a bigger stance than that. It's not about, well, this one slice of king cake isn't going to hurt me. I don't care. I don't want it. God forbid somebody I care about who might be secretively looking towards me for an example as to how they could change their life, see me and go, oh, well, Josh still eats king cake. Oh, well, Josh still eats, even though it might have been the only piece I had all year, right?
Yeah, it holds you accountable.
That one moment where I could make a difference for someone in my very own behavior, right? That matters to me. Right? So that has helped me really be able to stay on all the time. And so it doesn't matter that if one chicken wing isn't going to hurt me. I don't care about that. I'm done with chicken wings, bro. I'm done with it.
I think that this is so key. Like, it really helped me in my transition. Before, there's no way, but just setting up this mental framework to keep you on track and hold yourself accountable. It's bigger. It's bigger than just. It's bigger
than us, right? It's bigger than you. It doesn't matter if you can afford to eat a donut. I ran 20 miles this morning. I can afford to eat a donut. That's not the point. Mm-hmm. It's not the point to me at all. I'm thinking about people who are struggling, who aren't even admitting they're struggling. They're still making fat jokes about themselves, right? I know you. I know that person. I was that person. And I know what it's like when nobody's looking. I know what it's like when you're by yourself. And you're not happy with it, right? And so I want to be able to, so when someone sees, Josh has lost all of this weight and he runs all these races and he still only eats off the vegetable tray.
All right, that's awesome. I have a really interesting question. Well, a bunch of questions in the chat room. I'm going to ask one. It'll be a good transition. So Sean in the chat room asks, what is a good way for someone that is overweight to start running? Should you do a couch to 5K program, or is there something else? And then I want to add in and segue to this, maybe in that something else, do you want to talk about the importance of diet versus just running? So answer both those questions.
Yeah, sure. Couch to 5K is amazing. It's an amazing app. I got started that way.
Okay, cool.
And I used it. And then once what happens is it built a certain amount of inertia. And I stopped wanting to walk when the app would tell me to walk, right? And so I just kind of, and I was like, and I was kind of done with the app, and I just kind of took off from there, right? But it's a great way to get started. It's a great way. It's a great way to get started, and it works beautifully to kind of get you moving and get you in the fight and let you start feeling the flow of everything, right? And then and what was the second part? I forget.
Well, I wanted to know, like, I hear so much. We can't necessarily comment because Gwen and I were never super overweight at all. But so many people tell us that it's 90% diet and only 10% running. Yes, running is super important. It gives you that fuel, that drive, that ambition. Yeah. But 90% of your gains are going to be coming from your diet, eating plant-based. So what would you say to that person that is overweight and wants to do the couch to 5K? I mean, do they need to eat better too? Like, what should they do?
Oh, God, yeah, of course you need to. But here's the deal. If you can fall in love with the idea of wanting to be a runner, it makes changing what you eat more palatable, right? And so that's what happened with me. At first, I was using running as a way to mitigate the fact that I was eating donuts and drinking beer and eating fried oyster po' boys on the weekends. So I was using running. I was misusing running because I was running and I felt like I ran so much that I could eat whatever I wanted, right? And a lot of people do that in the beginning. And so maybe that's a necessary step, right? Maybe that's a step that has to be taken. But if you can hold on to the idea of being that runner, and then that protocol is not going to work. And if you can get through that phase without quitting and going, if you can get through that phase and go, damn, I just can't quite get that next step in running, or I want to hit that 30-minute threshold in the 5K or whatever the case is, whatever you're working towards, you get more open to changing the food. I find that's the way it went for me. Like I found rich roll. I found the the Rich Roll podcast. He helped me sort of really mold a mindset about unlocking and unleashing and a more authentic version of myself. He talked openly about considering yourself an athlete. He talked openly about dealing with addiction, and he did not exclude food from that.
Yeah.
And so that really resonated with me. He talked about alcohol the way that I thought about food. And so I was doing a lot of that learning as I was running, right? And so I think it's so to answer the question, the food's way more important than the running. However, I don't think you're going to do it that way.
Yeah, there's got to be something bigger. You got to be in love with something.
And the proof that the food, my grandfather, who's 85 years old now, he's lost 160 pounds in his recliner by changing to a whole food plant-based diet. Okay?
Just sitting there, just eating the food.
Just sitting there eating the food, right? Now he's not become fit, and he's not about to like win his age group in a 5K or anything like that. He's he's kind of skinny, but he's healthy, and he can move around, and
And that came with the whole food plant-based diet for sure, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So how did you get, like, you are talking about like your family, like when did your family started to be on board?
It was probably about 6 months in. I did it. I went pretty solo for a good 4 to 6 months, I would say.
I mean, that's pretty fast. And was it because you had like massive improvements?
Yeah,
we're talking about when you went fully whole food plant-based, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and they saw some massive changes in me, and it was pretty hard to like ignore.
So walk us through the weight transformation that happened.
So from 2011 until it took me 2011 to say mid 2012, I lost about 100 pounds or so. By my next one, I had gone up and down, and I was probably down about 120, maybe something like that. And then after the plant-based happened, it was a matter of months, and like 100 pounds went off.
Wow.
It was just boom, gone. and I mean, it happened fast. Like people thought I was sick. Like it was crazy,
But how did you feel? Because that could be.
I felt amazing. I felt like I was light. I was running faster. I was getting faster and faster and running longer and longer. I had these role models to look up to who, like, there was no question in my mind that what I was doing wasn't healthy. Like, because I had people that I was looking towards, like Rich Roll and Brendan Brazier and Scott Jurek and all of the doctors, like, it's Dr. Greger and Dr. Neil Barnard and Dr. Campbell and Dr. Esselstyn and there's all of these doctors that I'm like, okay, I don't care what Joe Blow has to say about my plant-based diet.
And you weren't concerned about protein or anything?
Yeah, there was no more energy being wasted on vetting all of this information. I was like, oh, okay. I had fallen in line with what the facts seemed to be saying to me, and I was completely comfortable with it. And so the noise, the opinion noise that comes as a side effect of doing something so different from the rest of your surroundings, that noise, it became really easy to ignore, and I just kept moving forward. And my family could see that in me. And I can't say that I was like stoic and just tried to lead by example. I definitely was mouthy, and I
Yeah.
definitely was making sure that they knew. I definitely was making sure that they watched Forks Over Knives, and you know, and so because I love them and they're my family, right? So
Yeah.
it's, hey, that shit will kill you. Remember, that's why Mama died. That's, you know, this is why she died. Look at this little computer generated thing of an artery, and okay, and this is why we watched Mama die in the ICU for 9
you're right
days.
here living proof that it can change. And
Right.
that's just mind blowing, because to everyone watching and all of these people out here in the US, it's like, you know, more than half of the country who are overweight, and maybe they want to be runners, or they want to be cyclists, or they want to be whatever it is. Like you said, it's this mental conditioning that Rich Roll kind of got you into, that you can do that. And you are like, it's really, it's inspiring me right now, because you are that living example. You did it. If you can do it, then anyone can do it.
And that's what, I'm not special. That's why I get so frustrated. And it's a really crazy thing to be frustrated about. But like, people telling, you know, will also, like, they'll say things about me, like, you know, that I'm very talented, or that I'm a beast, or, you know, I wish I had your legs or your genes, or I wish I had your drive. And it's like, I wasn't like touched with where was all of those things when I was 420 pounds?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not magic. I don't like have some sort of, I didn't magically like get something. Like, the results are typical.
Yeah.
Results are typical if you just abide, right?
Yeah, they are.
We are bipedal, plant munching organisms. And if we abide by that protocol, just watch, just see what happens.
Medical conditions totally go away. I mean, and actually, let's get into a question about a medical condition. This is from Sean in the chat room. Did Josh have any medical conditions prior to losing the weight? And if so, have they gone away?
Well, my biggest medical condition was that I weighed 420 pounds.
Yeah.
That is definitely a medical condition. My doctor was wanting to put me on high blood pressure medication, because the last 2 or 3 visits, my blood pressure was high. But other than that, nothing that I'm aware of. Like, I'm sure that if we dug deep enough, there was something wrong with my big 420 pound self, right?
You were on track for a heart attack. I mean,
absolutely. The genetics were there, right? The genetics were there, and I was doing everything in my power to make it come true. You know, just like Dr. Esselstyn says, you know, genetics load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. And I was yanking on the trigger really, really hard, you know.
Wow. So then what was your, I guess, you know, your weight right now? You were at, when you first went plant-based, what was your weight? And then, you know, what's your weight now? Like, what was that total weight loss?
Probably, yeah. So about, I'd say I was around 280 or so.
Okay, still a big boy.
Still a big boy. And then, and right now I'm about 185.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
So, you know, something that I think scares people most of the time in starting to change is that it feels, before you start changing, it feels like, yeah, but you know, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a lot of like restrictions. I'm gonna have to, you know, isolate myself from social life. I'm gonna, you know, like,
I can't have ice cream.
Yeah, like, it's always like, it's gonna be really hard. But for you, like, you know, was that were you thinking that before, and did that change?
Yeah, well, I wanted it. I wanted it. I lived a lifetime of being a fat person, and I had done all of the tricks before to try to do it easier. I had tried Xenadrin. I had tried sugar buster diets. I had tried all of the different things. I had tried all of those things that were supposed to mitigate how difficult it is to lose weight, right? And at some point, the difficulty almost becomes like a badge of honor. Like, yeah, It's hard. Yeah. Catch a grip. It's okay. Let it be difficult. It's just your life we're talking about, you know? It's just your life. And so, but what makes that more palatable is to have community around you. And that's what has happened for me with social media and in the plant-based world and in the running world and in the plant-based running world, is to be able to have a family around you, people that you've never even met before, that are, are there and with you. And it gives you a sense of belonging. And so you don't feel like an alien.
Yeah, you're not alone. You're not doing it alone.
And so that helps with that difficulty. If you feel like you need to cry over not being able to eat ice cream, then post it to your plant-based eating group and see how that flies. I don't know what to tell you, but I'll totally agree with you that, ice cream tastes better than broccoli, but that's not really the point.
Yeah, totally.
It's not really the point at all. I mean, whiskey gets you way drunker than water. What is that? So what? Like, we never take that argument from an alcoholic. Like, yeah, but I just can't get as drunk on water.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like, I love that. Wow, it's really hitting home. I've got some more questions, but we can.
Okay. Before we move forward, quickly, we kind of stopped on your journey about running. So we stopped to the point where you finished your second 10K.
Yeah.
And how did that go after that?
And you can answer a question while you're doing this. Sean Clark says that maybe you could talk a little bit about the kind of training you did after your first CCC in 2012 over those first 2 years to improve so much. And I have a feeling you kind of just answered it. A lot of the improvements came with diet, but yeah, with running, how did this all go?
Yeah, the running just, there was really no direction. There was the running wasn't very specific. It wasn't like XYZ training plan or anything. It was just a commitment to doing it and wanting to get better at it and really just running. I didn't do anything specific. I would go to the gym and I would run. I didn't run more than like 3 times a week or so in the beginning. I was worried about hurting myself, and I think that was probably a smart thing. But I would do a lot of elliptical, and I would go to the gym and do a lot of circuit training and stuff like that.
And you said you set big goals, which is pretty important. I mean, I think it's huge for anyone running or racing or wanting to lose weight. You said that you, right then after your first completion, you said, I want to do it again with you and your wife, right? So then it was like, you're now training for a whole year out. And was this a recurring event?
Yeah. So I've done it. I've done the Crescent City Classic every year since then. It's like my homecoming race. Like I love it. And this year I broke 40 minutes for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like going from, what was your first time?
1:43, an hour and 43 minutes. And this year I ran it in 39:55.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is so cool. Like, that's huge gains. I mean, in 10K, that's like, how can you even improve that much? But that is so that's how you did it. You stuck to it. You set big goals.
Just consistency. And again, I can't say enough about community, because let's talk a second about after the second 10K. What happened was I picked a half marathon, right? So there was the Jazz Half coming up in the city in October of that same year. And so in the interim, I found a running group in New Orleans called Louisiana Running Company. It's a shoe store, Louisiana Running Company, and they have a run group every Wednesday night. And I showed up. I was very nervous about it, but I felt like I had made some progress. I felt like, I had run a couple of Crescent City Classics. I could run like a 10-minute mile at this time. I thought that was really fast. which it was for me at the time.
Yeah.
And so I go to this run group and I introduce myself, and the guys are very nice to me. And we take off for the group run. And like mile 1, I ran like an 8:30 in mile 1. And it was all, I was completely done. I was way too fast. and so it's like a 5-mile loop. And I cut the loop short. Because I lost everybody by mile 2. I couldn't see anyone. And so we made it back. And even though like it was still like a really fast run for me, like I had never really run. It was like 4.8 miles is what it wound up being. I was like, holy cow, I ran that pretty fast. I would have never done it if I hadn't been trying to chase these guys. And so that happened in 2013. Like I fell into like going and being a regular with this run group and connecting with them on social media and seeing them at races, and we all wear the same orange singlet, and that kind of thing was kind of going on. And so I had like a tribe, you know, I had like a pack, and that was crucial. That was crucial because now I have people in my group that I'm chasing, and people that are chasing me. Like, so some people I'm looking to aspirationally, and some people are looking to me aspirationally, right? Wow. And so it all works together in this huge like group setting, and it's like a symbiosis happening there. It's really synergistic, you know. It really, everybody kind of works together, and that really was another level. That was another step forward in my running progression. And so that was while I was training for my first half marathon. I get that first half marathon in October, and I finished in like 2 hours and 13 minutes or something like that. And I was like, man, I know I can break 2 hours. I think I was a little conservative in the first few miles of that half. I'm going to run a little harder earlier in my next one. So I signed up for another one. And then I ran that one in 1:58. That was about a month after I ran that one in 1:58. So I broke 2 hours. Wow. I was like, holy shit, this is pretty crazy. This is fun. Like, I'm getting better at this.
I guess, like, but I mean, that much of a change in a month, I would say, like, it's, most of it is like it was your mental like,
barrier.
You broke the mental barrier, and now, you know.
Right. I started to think of myself as a person who could, and I'd never thought of myself that way. And then I wanted to test that. I wanted to test this new me. I wanted to be like, well, what else can you do? And it got fun. Like, it got really fun. And so. And for the first time after that second half marathon, I had these, you know, you get those race photos after the race. And for the first time I had like a sleeveless shirt on, and I saw myself running mid-run, and like I had one boob was up here. Like I still was a little flabby back then. You know? And so one of my friends, actually, I posted a picture, and he puts in the comments, boobies.
Oh gosh.
So, but I was like, damn, look at me though. Like, I look very athletic.
Yeah.
And so for the first time, I actually went and I found this app called Pick Stitch, right, in the App Store. And for the first time ever, I put together a fat picture, like, so a picture from my wedding with my friend Jeff's wife, and me running in that race, and I put it in that same in one picture, and I was like, holy shit, look at
this. Must be the one that kind of went viral. I think.
Yeah, that's what I tweeted to Rich Roll, because
actually that's a question too. Someone asks about how did you end up on the Rich Roll podcast? Like, how did that development take place?
Right, that's how, because after that, I was so proud that I broke 2 hours in the half marathon. Like, I'm like just on top of the world, man. And I get this picture. I'm like, look at me. I'm a runner.
Yeah.
And so I made that picture, and I tweeted to Rich Roll, and I just put, you know, I put something to the effect of, you were the person who made me think this was possible. He did. He totally made me believe that this was possible. And that was powerful. I get emotional just thinking about it. And he retweeted it. I would have never thought that he would have even paid it any. He retweeted it, and then he posted it on his Facebook page. And apparently it went pretty crazy on his Facebook page.
Yeah, he said that it was the most shared and liked photo that he had ever posted, ever.
Yeah. And then he contacted me, like, on, I think it was a DM on Twitter, and he's like, "Hey, I need to get your information. I want to send you something." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so I sent him my address, and then in my email address, and then we started an email exchange. And he said, "I think I want to have you on the podcast. Would you be open to that?" And I was like, "What?" Okay. Kind of nervous, but like, I've been listening to your podcast and I don't fit, but okay. And so, yeah, so we just had a conversation, and just like what we were talking about, you know, before we got on live together, it was like, I felt like I knew him already, you know, a lot of people. Yeah. And so I felt like, and so it was just talking to somebody that I felt like I knew already, and it was just having a conversation. And that podcast was actually kind of popular, you know, and at that time, I think it was like, it broke all his records for like the single day downloads.
Wow.
For his podcast. I think it's been surpassed since, but that was pretty cool, you know, because I'm not anything different. Like, I'm a regular dude that still has to do regular work and do regular people stuff. I'm living a regular life, and there's nothing great about me. And to have someone like Rich, like, not only reach out his hand, not only like congratulate you and give you props, but, you know, invite you to be a part of something that he's created that's so powerful, I think, in the Ritual podcast. Not only that, but to like really sort of take me under his wing like a big brother. I mean, it's just, I'm blown away every day. Yeah.
So was this your first really like time like on the stage, like
Talking about your story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. Like,
so what was this like then, like what changed after that? Like, you know, like what did bring new opportunities?
Yeah, what changed, like, social media immediately was just like blew up, you know. So all of a sudden, like, I had just started my Instagram account, I think, and it was just like I had to turn off the notifications because my phone was it was always going, you know.
Yeah.
And same thing with Facebook and Twitter. And I was like, wow, this is just crazy. People from all over the planet, people from everywhere. And I didn't know what to do with it. You know, I didn't know what to do with it. I just knew that it was special. And I knew that he had done something really cool for me. And I didn't want to waste it or ignore it or be scared of it and shy away from it, you know. So it made me scared. It made me very uncomfortable, but I kind of just stepped into it and did what I felt was right, you know, on a day-by-day basis, because I want to honor him and honor what he had done for me. I didn't want to like take for granted this thing that he had, you know, given me, this platform that he had in a mandate in a lot of ways. And I respect him. He's like, I mean, goodness.
I mean, yeah, that's insane.
He's a role model of mine. I really look up to him. And if he entrusted, you know, a nugget of his podcast content to me, maybe I'm worthy of something, maybe I am, and
Yeah.
so, right. So I took it and ran with it. Like I've been going, I was like, he's kind of giving me a torch a little bit. And I feel like I'm doing good by me, by honoring that, because
he even challenged you, right? Like he was like, we just listened to this podcast, but he was something like, he's like, damn, you better get out there and spread your message. Like,
yes, exactly. And he said, I see you like Phil in right, yeah. And he's like, I see you holding a little, and like, and it's funny is it's like he was some sort of soothsayer or something, because it's exactly what I've been doing, and it's exactly what I'm working on right now with like I was talking about earlier with this project that we're working on. And it's just something that it's just something that he's really ignited. He always says that I had the spark, and that he just wanted to fan the flame, and I love that analogy, and so I love that he thinks he saw a spark in me. I love that he decided to spend the energy to fan it into a flame, and I love being on fire for it. I love being on fire for the movement. I love being on fire for helping other people get a grip, whether that's through inspiration or direct advice or being real with you. If you message me on some half-cocked bullshit, I will let you know that you are making up a story about yourself that's not true. And so I take this stuff seriously, and what he did for me, like the gravitas of what he did for me, it's not lost. Like I totally get it and understand it, and respect it, and want to honor it in everything that I do moving forward.
So moving forward, like, I don't really even know the full story. Gwen was saying that, and for our viewers and people that are going to be tuning in, you were just traveling and you're on the cover of magazines. Like, what the hell's going on? How did this happen?
Well, so I just kept running, right? And wanting to get better and wanting to get faster. So I wanted to after that second half marathon is when Rich Roll had me on, and I told him that I was going to be doing my first full marathon that next January, which was 2014. I did that first full marathon, and then right after that, I decided to do the New York City Marathon. So I did the New York City Marathon in late 2014. I did a charity thing because I had been on the Rich Roll podcast. I knew that there were enough people following me now that if I said, hey, I'm running for charity, that people would pitch in, and
Cool. What charity did you use?
Team for Kids.
Awesome.
And so I did that, and I ran that marathon, and that marathon was very emotional for me. I wanted to break 4 hours. I came in like 3:48.
Wow.
And so it destroyed me, and I got on Instagram and just cried into Instagram, telling everybody thank you, because I just felt all of the support. It was just amazing. And then after that, I did my first ultra marathon in 2015, and a 50K on the beach. I ended 2015 with my first 100K.
Wow.
And then I went back to the marathon to run a PR in 2016. But in 2016, I ran a 50-mile race where I won. I won a 50-mile race. January 2016. Then I ran my marathon PR the following month. It was like 3:24. And then at the end of that year, I did my first 100-mile race. So at the end of 2016, I ran a 100-mile race in 22:45, and I came in third overall. And that's when that's when the Runner's World thing all came into being. Like, so I knew I was kind of in the mix during that point. And then they announced it in November.
So they were already looking at you like, man, this guy's on. And do you think it was because of your weight loss? Like just your story, right? Because they're after stories.
What David Willey told me is like, it was a combination of, yes, you had a warm, fuzzy weight loss story, but at the same time, like, you've become a pretty serious runner.
Yeah.
So it's not like a guy that you look at and go, oh, you're a good runner for having been a fat guy. It's like you're the actual athlete, regardless of how big you used to be. And so, and he said that they really liked that, you know, my sense of community, and so it's like a combination of things, I think. And because there was some really worthy people in that bunch of guys. I really honestly felt guilty to be the winner in that group because I loved them all. I thought they were all amazing, and I'm still friends with them.
Yeah, that's insane.
You know? And so, but yeah, it was that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you guys, for everyone watching, you're gonna have to check out. Just, I mean, if you Google Josh's name, you're gonna see all this stuff. And everyone who hasn't listened to the Rich Roll podcast, we should link all of those stuff in the description of the video below, because that's just amazing.
Yeah. So not only, you know, like you said, okay, you know, the being on the Rich Roll podcast like was a big step, but then like again.
Yeah.
Again, in 2015, I met him for the first time in person in Marshall, Texas, at Health Fest in Marshall, Texas. And so he kind of wanted to talk about my first ultra marathon, you know. So we met in his room and we did the thing, and it was the first time like I actually got to hang out with him. So we talked when the mic wasn't on, you know. So we got to just hang out like friends and talk. And that was special. That was really special to me. And he really sort of cemented himself as a big brother figure to me that weekend in my mind. And yeah, so that was really cool.
And this is something that I want all the viewers to know, and everyone watching this, is that this community of, you know, plant-based runners is real. It's seriously real. And you're telling this story, but as soon like earlier today when we first called Josh up, it's like, hey, but like, we already fucking know you. Like, you know, like it's a real thing. And no matter who you are, like, it brings people together in such a special way that you can walk up to Rich Roll and give him a hug like you did the first time, right? There's a photo of it. I mean, that's pretty cool. It's
pretty cool. As a matter of fact, I was all the way, and so that all brings you up to this weekend. And so part of being on the cover of Runner's World was I won a trip to go to any marathon in the world.
Wow.
And so I picked Liverpool, England. And while I was there, which was amazing, by the way, we had a great time.
Wow. Was it your first time over there?
Mm-hmm, yeah. First time off the continent.
Yeah.
And
because of running, because of your talent.
You're
a pro, man.
It's so surreal. It's so surreal. Like the whole, I'm like, we're walking around downtown Liverpool and going and looking at all these places where, you know, where the Beatles first started playing at the Vines, and like all of these different, like looking at all of this stuff, and I'm like, we're in Liverpool for free.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. Like, right? They paid for everything.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so crazy. And I'm in the bathroom before the marathon. Like, I'm waiting in line to go to the restroom before the marathon. And this guy walks up and he's like, hey, you're Josh, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm Josh. So he shakes his hand. He's like, I follow you on Strava and Instagram. My name's Sam. It's like, oh, I know who you are, yeah. So we had kind of been in touch before on social media about Liverpool. We both knew we were both going to be there. And so we hung out. Like we hung out for the whole pre-race thing, and we got in the same starting corral because we were both trying to run around the same time, and
wow,
so yeah, we got to talk, and my wife snapped a picture of us, and lo and behold, in the picture, without even me realizing it, there's a person standing on the outside the barricade, outside the start corral, with a vegan shirt on. And so,
really?
Yeah. So I posted the picture, and Sam, he's like, "Look at the guy behind us." Where he's like, "We're taking over, man. It's awesome." And yeah, and so that was pretty powerful, yeah. And so as in all of these things in my whole story, like you have all of these high points, and even the trip to Liverpool was just a huge, massive, it was just a very surreal experience. It was really awesome. And to have folded into that wonderful experience, the terrible experience of failing so miserably in the race itself.
Yeah, so for all the viewers, you went over there for this marathon, and
yeah, I wanted to Boston qualify. I haven't Boston qualified in a marathon, so that's my next thing that I really wanted to do. I've laid off of ultra marathoning in the meantime, trying to just get my speed up and not try to run big miles per a coach that I hired. And I just wanted to. I just felt like it seemed so impossible for somebody to go from 400 pounds to Boston qualified marathon runner. And I just want.
What's the standard for your age group?
the time?
3:10.
Okay.
And so I went into that race, my goal was about 3:07. That was what my goal was. And that would have been about a 7:08 pace. And I felt like it was doable. I felt like it was going to be, it was close. But I felt like it was possible. And I knew that Liverpool was hilly. I had seen the race profile before the race. My calculations on how hilly was wrong a little bit. I was figuring about 500 feet a gain, which was going to slow me down a lot because I'm still, 185, 190 pounds. I'm a big guy for a marathoner. And it wound up being more like 900 feet after all was said and done. But the weather was cool that morning, and I just felt really, really good. And so I came out and I ran like mile 1 in like 6:48. And I was like, wow, that's too fast. I need to slow down. And I slowed down in like 6:52, 6:53, 6:53, 6:50, 6:53, 6:47 again, and I'm like, ugh. And I'm wrestling with myself, like, is this gonna be like an amazing finish, or is this gonna be like a disastrous blow up?
And so was that pace? Because I know how that is. The adrenaline is kicking in. You're like, I feel great. So yep. Was this like you felt like this was sustainable, but also this was a new goal? So was this an unknown territory? Have you ever ran that fast?
I ran that fast. So I ran about a 6:47 average for a half marathon back in February.
Okay, so you were comfortable with the pace, but then, a marathon, that's a whole different
thing. A marathon, and then you add in the hills.
Yeah.
I'm not used to.
Yeah.
And it got bad. It got bad pretty quick. Like,
And how was your fueling? Like,
fueling, I was doing goose. And so I took my first one in 7. And then I took another one right before I got to my wife. I had my wife waiting for me in mile 11 with a bottle that I had made with electrolytes and some calories. And I was cruising. I was doing really well all the way through 10, 11. Right after I got that water bottle, we had to go uphill for about a mile and a half. And it's not steep, but just enough. You know, like it doesn't need to be much grade.
No, not when you're going that
around a
pace.
7-minute pace, right? It doesn't need to be much to really hurt. And so mile 12, 13, 14, 15, you know, I was drinking the water bottle and I was getting through there. It was starting to hurt really bad. And then 17, I caught a cramp for the first time. Like I caught a cramp. I don't even remember where. It was in my right leg. I don't remember if it was a hamstring or a calf, but I had to stop for a second to get myself undone. And then I started running again. And then we got to Penny Lane, and then I'll never forget that song, Penny Lane, that Beatles song. I'll never hear it the same way again, because there was a turnaround as a 180 at Penny Lane.
Wow.
And so they were playing, you know, Penny Lane at the end, and I'm like, by this point I was just misery, because I knew that I was failing hard, and my pace, I was watching my average pace get bigger and bigger and bigger. I was up in the 7:15 range average right now, and that was too early to be that high. I was expecting to not really start touching that until, you know, 22 or so. And then I was just fighting through 18, 19, 20, 21. And then right at 21, we had to fight another uphill. And that was just like, it just ended me. That last little uphill, it just ended me. And by the time I got to 22, I was completely depleted. I could barely even walk. I could just barely walk. I seriously considered just laying in the grass.
So what did make you just like keep going? Because I know how hard it can be, especially because you know, you are like high on the stage and everyone is, you know, looking at you, and like you have all this pressure, not only from yourself because you want to qualify for Boston Marathon,
right?
But you also have like people looking at you, and you have this outside pressure. So like, you know, how did you handle that, and what made you keep going?
Well, my the ultra marathoner that lives inside of me kicked in, because you just don't quit.
Yeah,
it's just that simple. And so I can let myself think all of those things. I can do these mind games where I go, just make it to that next pole, and then you can lay down, you know. And so I would get there and I'll just go one more, like, and so I could just push my way through that very uncomfortable phase of the race that way. And that's a lot like it was, you know, doing 100 miles. Like there's points in that race where you pretty much have decided that it's over, and you're just postponing it. You're going, let's go one more mile, you know, let's just take another step, right? And that's all I did, and that's it. It's just I don't quit. I'm not quitting. Whatever this means to anybody else who sees, you know, a 14-minute pace after running, you know, like I did earlier in the race, it is what it is. It was ugly. It was not pretty, and it hurt like a son of a bitch. It hurt so bad, not only physically but mentally. Just, you know all of those feelings you get.
Yeah.
You feel inadequate, you feel embarrassed, you feel humiliated, you feel less than, you know. But God damn it, I'm not quitting. That's just it. I'm not stopping. I did not come all of this way to not finish this thing. And that was it. You know, it got into ultra marathon mode there in the last 4 miles, where it was just about not quitting. If it meant I had to crawl, that's what I would have to do. I would have to crawl. You know, it came close to crawling.
I mean, and that takes so much. I love that. I love hearing when people like, you know, because it's so easy to quit. So
yeah, they had little paramedic dudes like on bicycles, kind of going around and making sure. And a lot of people, because I must have looked really bad, because they were like, "Are you all right?" And they kept checking on me and stuff. And I felt really bad because, you know, I had so many people were just watching my splits and tracking me on the app and everything. And you know, I know everybody was wondering what the hell happened. There was nothing I can do. There was nothing I could do about it. Like there's nothing I could do about it. I did it to myself. You know, my eyes were bigger than my stomach. And I thought that I could run in the 650s until I couldn't anymore. And I would be able to slow down to the 720s and limp it in.
I mean, but so like what we were saying earlier, you're still a new runner. I mean, you're learning, and that's what's so cool. Like you're not, I mean, you kind of are a pro runner already because you're paid to travel, but you know, you're new and you're learning, and people, you know, following you can learn from you, and it's a journey, and we're all so new, and that's like the beauty of it too.
I really feel like that I learned a lot from this race. And when I shared my splits with my coach was like, "Now let me ask you something. Think back to the beginning of that race. How nice would it have been to run 7:10 splits? Think about how easy that race, the first half of that race would have been if you'd have stuck to 7 minutes and 10 seconds a mile." And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "It would have felt like a long run, Josh. It would have felt like a tempo run at worst." And he's like, "You just burn through your glycogen. You just burn through. There's just nothing you can do, you know." And that's kind of the way I've always raced. But I guess I'm getting to a point now in my Boston aspirations that approach is not.
It's not sustainable anymore.
You can't overcome. You can't overcome that. Like
the glycogen depletion is a real thing, and like no matter what. And actually, this leads into a question from Brett in the chat room. I'm starting to run longer distances now, and I see Josh does some runs fasted, as do we. Does a runner need to take in calories on long runs to keep going, or is it all about conditioning the legs? Thanks.
It depends on how intense the long run is, and it depends on how accustomed you are to it. But I think that if you're doing like zone 2 efforts, really, really moderate effort, long stuff, I think that it is beneficial to start learning how to make do with a lot less on long runs. And don't, because we spend a lot of time making sure that we're fueled up for our training runs. And I don't know if that's the best tact. Because you're gonna be at a deficit on race day. It's just what it is. And so to make sure that you're properly fueled all the time for all of your long runs, I think is probably not helping very much. That's all. So yeah, lower intensity long runs. I'm trying actually to be in a deficit. Yeah, and so I'll take calories. It depends, because it depends on what I'm doing, because sometimes, like if you go and you're doing a 30-mile training run, right? You need some calories.
Yeah, you do. You can. You
need some calories. This
question's so tricky. Like
now, what would be nice is maybe be a little more precise on when you talk about calories. Like, give us, an example of like, what do you bring?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I will, for my long runs, I usually just bring I'll park my truck and use my truck as an aid station, like when it's a really long run, and I'll just put some fruit in an ice chest, because you got to remember, it's hot here all the time, especially during the summer. It gets really brutal. But so I'll do I do goos mainly,
Okay.
and then I'll have some fruit, so I can have something where I can kind of eat my water, if you will. So I eat my hydration, if you will, like watermelon and stuff like that. Apples, I like how the crisp coldness of the fruit on a hot long run is nice. And tailwind, I do like tailwind is a good one. I like to use tailwind, and that's about it. That's about all of the calories that I'm taking. That's the calorie sources that I'm using on my long runs. And I have, right before I started this. So, and just to be a little bit more clear, like, so as you get more seasoned, I guess, as you get more and more conditioned to running long, you learn how to go with less and less and less and less. Like, so I have done, I did 28 miles right before I started this. Wasn't really training for anything. I just wanted to go for a big long run. And I did 28 miles, and all I took was electrolytes with no calories.
Wow.
So I drank water it's an electrolyte spray that I use, and just water in 8 squirts in each water bottle every time I refill the water bottle, and no calories at all. But I stayed very, very, very easy, very easy. But I've been doing it long enough now to where my body's conditioned to that, I guess. But yeah.
Okay.
So I can do that now.
Yeah. I think what could be cool to like kind of wrap up the show, because we could chat forever, but we're going on an hour 45 now, and I know people probably.
Oh goodness.
I know. Like, we could seriously go all night.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in what is exactly this project that you're doing. Like, what's next for you, and and also, like, maybe in the same time you can answer these questions. As you're growing in popularity as a role model, and people start asking more questions like this, are you coaching people, like mentoring? Is that something? If so, where can people send you questions? Like, do you have a Patreon? What's going on?
I struggle with thinking of myself as like that person,
But you did it, like you.
I know.
Yeah.
You are such an inspiration for so many people.
Yeah.
You change people's life.
Yeah, I mean, and you. Yeah. Anyway,
I do. So to answer your question on the coaching thing, I do a version of that, but I have a partner in Howard Jacobson who is he was the co-author with Dr. Campbell for the book Whole, and I don't know if you've read or heard of Proteinaholic by Dr. Garth Davis, but Howard also was a co-author for that book, and he's become a really just a like one of my best friends. Like, he's just become just a really good friend of mine. He's my business partner now. We're working on our book together. We're doing a book together. We have several chapters already done, and we do a program called the Big Change Program. And so we are in our second cohort, or second class, or whatever you would call it, of people in the Big Change Program. And it's an intimate setting. It's not huge numbers of people, but it feels right. It feels good. I've got the best of both worlds, because I get to be able to be part of a community, and we do like these Zoom video calls once a week, and so we can actually see each other's face, and I feel very intimately connected with these people, which is very important to me. And to have someone like Howard involved with me makes me feel a lot better about taking on people as like as a coach.
Yeah.
I have him who has like he's got like real chops, you know, he knows his shit. He knows the science. He's got, you know, the references right in his brain, and he's like the, you know, the behavioral science and the nutritional science, and like, and so he's my I don't know. He's just my rock, like that I lean on, and it frees me up to just be me. And I'm just the guy. I'm just a guy, and I can talk, and I don't have to. Nobody's dependent on me to like stay on top of all of the emails and make sure that all of the homework is done, and like all of these things. Howard does that, and I can just kind of be me. And so it's like the best of both worlds. I get to really be a part of something that does precipitate some big change in people's lives. At the same time, I don't have to make all of the pieces and parts move precisely. Howard is really good at doing all of that and handling all of the modules and doing all of that stuff. And so
right now it's pretty small, but is there a plan to upscale it?
Oh, of course, yeah. Of course, it would be great to scale that up and go bigger and bigger. Efficacy is paramount, though. That's like the focus. Is this really effective? Is it something? I don't want to just reach for numbers because we can get numbers.
So who's this program for? Tell me the type of person.
Right now, it seems to be just for the person who is maybe already plant-based, who isn't quite realizing the results that they want. And so they might understand the food, but what they are missing is the movement and the mindset necessary to sustain the big change, right?
Cool.
And so that's where we are, and it works. Like, it's really good. It's really fun to be a part of it. It's really fun to hear. Most of it's ladies. We have a lot of people in there. Most of them are ladies, and it's really so sweet to hear. I see their little faces on the Zoom calls, and seeing the little faces shrink, and they get all excited about doing, I did a mile in 16 minutes today, or I did 2 miles in 30 minutes today, or whatever. And it's just really fun to be a part of that. And so, but to go bigger, like I don't want to blow it up and make it like not so intimate. So there's like this weird balance thing going on right there as far as the growth of that goes right now. But we have lots of good content, and it's just, I'm really proud of what we've created there. And we're working on a project where Howard and I are in the very beginning stages of like starting a nonprofit to incubate real change in rural communities along the bayou, up and down the bayou where I'm from here in South Louisiana. Just a way to sort of seed small communities with real nutritional science knowledge about the efficacy of a plant-based diet when it comes to dealing with chronic disease, which our state is riddled with.
Yeah, like finding a way to get, that is such a target audience. You have such a specific, and if anyone needs this information, it's these people.
Yes. And so to be able to use, I can kind of speak the language. I'm from here, right? And so to be able to, we still haven't quite figured out what it's going to look like yet. We're still working on it. We've got some MDs involved. We've got a lot of really cool people involved that are wanting to help us get this thing going. We're going to probably do the first cohort. I have a mobile home park, and so that my grandfather built a long time ago, and I've grown up there and I've watched people, you know, get sick and fat and die over and over and over in there. We're talking about lower income people suffering from chronic disease, and not just the death and the misery, but think about the money in these people's lives that gets wasted on pharmaceuticals and copays and, you know, all of these different expenses dealing with living with chronic disease, when it doesn't have to be that way. My grandfather is an example of that. My grandfather was paying like $1,200 a month for medicine at one point, you know, and
yeah, that's not sustainable. I mean,
no, it's just right. It's just crazy. And so changing his food, losing 160 pounds. Now he's down. He's been taken off of almost all of the medication, and he's happier and healthier than he ever was before, right? And so my mom is the same way. You know, I have a mother-in-law who's the same thing. You take away these medications. These medications are chemical. And it sounds so crazy to people, like, oh, what are you talking about? I mean, you're not a doctor. Like these are miracle drugs, or
yeah, it's like the food cannot solve their issue, right?
It's like you're talking crazy talk, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to like really sort of beat that drum in a relatable way to people with this firsthand knowledge that I have, and to be able to do it here and just sort of help agitate some change in that realm would help me fulfill like a sense of purpose.
I mean,
like,
that's it, Josh. That's crazy. Not many people have what you have and have the passion to get in there and, you know, and make this change and start this nonprofit. Do you have a name for the nonprofit?
Yeah. We
Can you share anything like that?
Sure. It's loosely, we're calling it Bayouville, because up and down the bayou where I'm from here on Bayou Lafourche, everything ends in ville, right? So it's like Thibodaux was originally Thibodauxville, and so they got Labodyville and Napoleonville and Pankerville. Everything's a different ville up and down the bayou. And so I thought it would be cool to name it Bayouville, and Bayouville.org was a URL that was available. And so, not that we've done anything with it yet, but we did purchase it, have it. And so that's kind of what it's going to be called. It's be like, you know, just the Bayouville.org health initiative, whatever.
Well, this is really cool because you don't know much about us, but we're starting our own nonprofit right now too.
Oh,
so
really?
Going through this, like filing away.
My wife's got like a stack of stuff to read because we're gonna have to do the long form deal.
Yeah. So we were just like so blessed that we have. I mean, it's probably the same for you. All of the stars have just aligned, and people are coming to us and want to help. And we got a law firm in Seattle that is donating their time to do everything for us. It's just like, what the hell is going on? But
so cool, right?
The coolest thing is that we have the same mission, and we want to inspire people to eat more plants, change their life, and not necessarily run. It's going to be called it is called Plant Positive, and we definitely, you know, we're going to need to team up with you.
Sure.
With your nonprofit. Like ours is all about giving back in different ways, and we're going to be doing endurance challenges around the world and trying to also implement change in those communities where we have the endurance challenges. So
like it.
This is just cool because you're on the same page as us, and we're stoked.
This is how we change the things. It has very little to do with how we vote, and it has a lot to do with what we do.
Yeah.
And so if we want to see change, then we got to make it happen. We got to do it. We got to get in the fight and start swinging. And we can't just, you know, passively sit back and argue about what ought to be, what should be, what could be, and you got to just do. You got to do.
Yeah.
You got to do.
No, there was a really interesting speech of Obama, his first speech since he was president in Italy. I don't know if you have seen that. And he was talking about climate change,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about food and how food production was a cause of climate change that wasn't addressed. He talked about,
Beautiful.
energy production, of course, was a big problem, and people can identify because they see the smokestack and the pollution. But people, we never educated people on how food production is also a big part of it. But what he was saying is like, most of the improvement will come from individuals' choices, because right now, to change the industry, to change the way things work because of the money and where the money is. And when we're gonna start changing people's choices, then that's gonna shift the industry. The industry is not gonna sell something that people don't want. When there will be more demand for something cleaner, then it's going to be in the interest of everyone to switch. But until there is not that demand, so that's why, like, you and us, like, that's what we want to do. We want to inspire people on the individual level to show them what they can do on an everyday basis.
And like what you were saying, Josh, what you can do, and leading by example, and just being that beacon of positive change, and not speaking about all the negatives, like just leading by example, living your life. People see it. It's real.
You'd be surprised how many other problems disappear if we fix this food thing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so let's do that. Let's work it. Let's fix it. Let's fix it right here. And then whatever's left to be dealt with, then we can deal with that. But you'd be surprised how many things are going to disappear, because I can just tell you in my own life how it has worked.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that me, eating a certain way would have helped the way I think about worldly issues or, these more complex things. Things that don't seem connected actually are. Everything is connected. We're all part of the same ether. So anything that you think, any positive thing that you do doesn't go unnoticed by the rest of the universe, right? So there's no bad idea. There's no wrong thing to do in pursuit of something good. And so what if you can't, lay out an exact connect the dot plan? Is like, well, I'm going to do this and it's going to help that, and then that's going to help that, and you want to envision everything linearly, but it's not how it works. It's not how it works. We need to do positive stuff for our fellow man, and we need to do like you said. We need to be a voice, be the change we want to see, help fan all of those. We got all of these sparks. You start these initiatives and you see a bunch of sparks, and then you help fan all of those flames, and you have a raging inferno before long, and that's how you change things. And all of the stuff that you get caught up on in the periphery is just distraction. We need to just stay focused on these vessels that are the human bodies that make up our collective biomass, if you will, on this planet. And I think a lot of our problems will dissipate if we really honor this vessel.
Yeah, we believe so too. I mean, I always tell people there was this strange, spiritual shift that occurred within me, and that has occurred within my sister and my family when they went plant-based. And it's not something that I can describe, but it has something to do with what you were saying earlier when we were chatting. It's like we were put on this planet, like we are designed at the core of our being to do certain things and to connect with nature and to be there and be kind to animals and be kind to people and to love life and eat plants. And once you do that, you just feel so good. And it's the weirdest thing. So I totally get it.
It's about authenticity, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, problems disappear. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I don't know what else to tell people. Just try it.
Just
try it. And don't, in closing, I would there's a few questions that I got to ask you before we shut this thing down and we need to soon. But don't overcomplicate things, right? Just try it. Don't commit to something big. Just stop talking, stop asking so many dang questions and just try something. Just try it.
Do. Yeah, just do.
So some quick questions before we leave. What would you say to yourself, like to your 20, right before you started this journey? If you could give some advice to yourself before you started your weight loss journey, what would that advice be now? Like to save you some time, or like what would you tell yourself back then? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I would have listened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem that we are.
That's the problem, right? That's the problem. But if I could talk to myself, I don't know if I would give him any advice, but I would like to tell him that I love him very much, and that you're gonna go through some shit, but it's gonna be all right, and you'll be surprised what we turn into.
Man, I love that, because it's about the journey, and like something I was listening to earlier, and I made an Instagram post about it, but the shit that we go through, the rough times, the stuff when you think you're gonna be rock bottom and you're gonna be living on food stamps, or I don't know, starved to death because you're not getting enough protein. These are the times that define us, and guaranteed when you make it out the other side, because you will, it's gonna be, it will.
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So that's good advice. I love that.
Yeah.
Were there any other final questions that we wanted to ask? Just random stuff?
Well, we don't really have our list, and it's getting.
Yeah, but seriously, Josh, thank you so much for being on. Where can people find more about you? Do you have a?
You can find me on my website. I have joshlajaunie.com.
Okay.
So you can find me there, and you can connect to any of my social media from there. I'm mostly active on Instagram. Like, I'm very partial to Instagram. That's my favorite platform. So I'm usually pretty busy on Instagram. I love the new Instagram stories.
Yeah, we love it too.
Stuff. Yeah, so yeah, Instagram's my favorite place to be. So you can find me there and check out my website, and you'll be able to see all the other stuff, YouTube and all of the other stuff that I have going on.
Cool. That's awesome. Amazing. Well, I mean, thank you so much, and I'm sure that we're going to do another show with you in another year, and like you're going to be a pro.
Anytime.
Athlete. You're already a pro. So.
And I know that in a few years you will look back and say, like, you know what, like this interview with Katie and Gwen really boosted my career.
That's it. I love hearing my last name said by someone who.
Yeah. So we were trying to figure out how the hell to say your last name. How would you say it?
Josh LaJaunie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how you would
say it. I think I'm the one that says it like the best, because that's how it's supposed to be said. That's how, and we say LaJaunie, but that's just because we have a different accent on the thing. But it's exactly that's the real name right there.
Nice. Okay, wait. I'm gonna say a few things. Cheryl in the chat room says, join the Big Change program. Love it, and it's been so helpful. Josh and Howard are both awesome. People are giving thumbs up. People are saying amazing. This is so inspiring. I need this right now. Wow. So thank you so much. We are so excited to have connected and made a friend, and everyone in the chat room, and like just to connect more. So make sure, if you guys like the video, if you're new to our channel, you subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot more of this. Check out what we're doing. Check out Josh's website, his YouTube, and let's keep this thing going and do some more of it. Yeah? Okay.
I'm in.
All right. Thanks, Josh. And I'm sure we will be talking more soon.
I hope so, man.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.
Yeah.